changing and adjusting to the time that we live in. And sometimes that comes with pain and a little bit of chaos, right? Moving into this new space where we're recording today, a little bit of chaos at first, but then we're here and the water settles and then we move forward. So as you move forward in your week before the next That's What She Said day, just remember there's always a little bit of chaos when there's with growth, and then you just push forward. So remember to grow, allow yourself that space too. So you are tuning in to That's What She Said, and I have some really cool news. Um, my producer, Jonathan Dent, said we're on Apple Podcast and Spotify and Audible. Oh my gosh, sorry, thank you. Audible. I wrote them down, but I just blanked. So all those wonderful new spaces that we have grown to can be somewhere you can tune in. As always, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Thursdays at 1:30. And then on the radio waves, yes, WSGW is gracious enough to give That's What She Said space on Sundays at 6 o'clock, 100.5 FM and 790 AM. So enough of that. We are here for our guest. And she is someone who got on my radar, I should say, because it was like, everybody's on Facebook, right? And I'm on scrolling on Facebook and it's just like, oh, a friend you might know. And I was like, hey, this is cool. And then I looked at her picture. I was like, spicy. I love it. So I added her. We became friends, started networking together. And then things just fell into place. I said, you know what? This week, and That's What She Said, let's highlight love, self-love. And if there's a girl that is like pushing self-love and empowerment towards women in the region, this is her, Arielle Roth. Thank you for coming on. Sorry, Arielle Roth.
It's a weird name.
No. It's beautiful. Arielle Roth is here, and I want you to actually introduce yourself and tell us how the community might know you.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm Arielle. I think if we look at present time, pretty much everyone knows me through boudoir. That's the reality of it. And I'm also super open about my journey in recovery and overcoming addiction and abuse. So a lot of people know me through that. If I go back a little bit, close to 10 years I've been in the marketing and photography realm now, but I worked with Go Great Lakes Bay for a long time. I was their marketing manager. So I handled all the Pure Michigan campaigns and marketing for the region for Bay, Midland, and Saginaw counties, and was heavily involved with the community at that point. So that's really how I started to build. I sat on the boards for Women in Leadership. I was the chair for Young Professionals Network for a period of time, sat on the chamber board of directors. I'm heavily involved with Health Half Mile. I've sat on the board for the Humane Society. I do work with Mustard Seed, getting involved with the East Side Soup Kitchen. So there's a lot of realms. But I think if we look at just me as an individual now, it is that realm of recovery, addiction, boudoir, empowerment, and all of that.
Can you tell our listeners who are just like, what is boudoir? What is this? Can you give them a definition?
I think from a societal standpoint, it's still pretty taboo, but a lot, it's taking pictures for whether that be your wedding day or pictures in lingerie. There is still a huge taboo behind it, but really, and it's self-empowerment. I shoot with the goal of your partner, if you're shooting for your partner, should find you attractive no matter what. I try not to shoot in a male stylized gaze. I try to shoot in a really organic, feminine way because I want any woman who steps into my studio to see their body for what it is and as a whole, and the parts that they like and do not like together, to see themselves as other people see them. But I mean, in reality, it's taking sexy, half-naked photos.
That's fun. So the way you introduced yourself today, I couldn't help but think of the word that I just always spills out of my mouth during the show, and that is empowerment. Your resume, yourself, you've built yourself to lift up others. What were some of those venues that you mentioned where you really felt like you were lifting someone up?
Truthfully, in the realm of lifting other people up, it has been more so being on my own. And so in the past couple of years, I have stepped away from a lot of that board work because if I really took a step back and looked at it, I was like, this isn't bringing me tremendous joy. Like, yes, it is helping me career-wise. And I'm so glad I had been married to my career at those point in time. But truthfully, I think my story and how I speak and how I coach and the ability of my skill set that I'm able to have. I'm going to veer off here for a minute, but Phil Ike asked me why I chose boudoir or to go into photography as a niche. And I said, really, photography is just a skill set that I have at the end of the day. That is no different than you are great at speaking on radio and you can empower people through that. I understand how to use a camera. I understand my settings. I know how to edit. I know how to pose. And that gives me the ability to do the same thing that you're doing in this show with my own skill set. And so I think simply looking at those aspects and being myself has actually done more than any of those community engagement aspects that I have done in terms of empowering women.
Okay, so we're jumping into this fairly quickly because you got my wheels turning, girl.
That's okay.
And so when was it that you recognized, hey, I am married to my job, but now I need to be married to my talent?
So that goes into a lot of recovery for me as well. I really spent my 20s married to my career, and I'm so thankful for it. So I don't just do photography. I also own a creative agency, Elemental Marketing. We do web design, graphic design, branding, logos, digital marketing for companies. And I started freelancing in 2016. If you knew Ben Bodser, Ben was my best friend. He passed away. It'll be March 12th. It'll be 4 years. So I relapsed that night. I had been 32 days sober. It was my gazillionth time of trying to quit drinking, all of that. And I relapsed that night. And I woke up in my friend's kids, 4-year-old kid's bed, and I had thrown up in my sleep. I woke up crying, which I didn't know was possible. And I quit drinking the next day. So March 13th will be 4 years sober for me.
Congratulations.
But thank you. It's a weird time of year for me right now. A lot of grief, but a lot of proudness. So that next year was an odd point. But immediately after Ben died, I spent a lot of time going through old messages, and there were a lot that were, hey, sorry, I can't do that. I'm busy. I have tight deadlines. I have to get this done for work, all of that. And he is the one who actually convinced me in 2016 to start freelancing. And he was like, if anyone can do it, it's you. And he was really excited because it meant we could get lunch whenever we wanted. I quit my job at the DoubleTree. I got headhunted by Go Great Lakes Bay 3 days later. So my stint of freelancing as an independent lasted a couple days.
Yep.
But I continued to freelance. But really going through and seeing all of those messages, because it's different. When you lose a person because you choose to separate, in whatever way it might be, you have a different ability to process that. But when a person dies, you're like, oh, this is just my life now. And so when you go back through all of that, you realize how much you've missed out on that could have been there. Or now I'm doing all these things and he isn't here for those moments. But it just made me reevaluate. At the end of the day, I am still married to my career in some way. I own multiple businesses. That's never going to stop being a reality of who I am. We talked briefly before this that my tubes are tied. I've chosen to be child-free because I love my career. It's a huge core part of who I am. But I enjoy having the ability now where if my nephew has a play, I can prioritize that over a job that I need to have. Or if I'm having a bad mental health day, I have the ability to not have to call in sick. And so it just shifted my perspective a lot. But I would also not be where I am right now had I not been married to my career in my 20s. So
there's a lot to digest.
Yes.
There. Yeah. There's, you can't, what is this? You can't have one without two, right?
And I would never change that I had done that in my life because it is why I am where I am right now. My mom and I talked about that. We grew up in a really abusive household. And I said, truthfully, I wouldn't change that was how I was raised because at the end of the day, I know how to operate in chaos. That was our life growing up. I know how to operate on things flipping on a dime. I know how to operate in having 12,000 moving pieces around me. It has probably set me up for success of being someone who owns multiple companies and operates the way I do, rather if I had not grown up that way.
So when you're talking about this relapse, right? And this was kind of, you woke up and you're like, I can't do this anymore. Why was it that you chose prior to that to keep, going? You said you went through therapy, you went through rehab, you were trying to help yourself. What was some of those points where you're just like, I'm going to keep trying?
I think so. I didn't ever do rehab or anything.
Okay.
Have fully like done it on my own. I had a DUI in 2017 and tried quitting off and on. AA was never for me. I'm pretty anti like it. It's too religious based. I don't like a lot of their systems. That being said, anyone who listens to this, if AA works for you, please continue to go. Like if that works, but figure out what works for you. But I say it all the time. Most of us know that we need to quit. Like I can guarantee to you almost anyone who has an addiction issue in their life knows that it's something they struggle with and they probably hate themselves for it. But you have to learn how to feel feelings when you get sober and have to learn how to deal with things head on. And a lot of it is emotions that we avoid dealing with.
Was that hard for you to feel?
So I spent my last year and a half of drinking. I started when I was 16, like, and not going to parties and stuff, but drinking by myself because of living in the home that we did. And so it's been 4 years. So I would have been 29 when I quit. So I never even really learned how to process emotions as a teenager because I was already drinking at that point in time to cover them up. Whereas most people are at least learning, like, how do I feel things somewhat. But most of us know that we need to. Knowing and wanting to are two very different things. And also having to feel feelings is incredibly, incredibly overwhelming. Not just sad ones, but also happy feelings are something most of us haven't experienced. Anyways, to loop all that back around.
No, that's really interesting.
So I spent my last year and a half drinking, throwing up blood and throwing up in my sleep. My mom works for a gastro and I had told her my GERD was acting up so I could get a wedge pillow because I didn't want her to know that it was from drinking. So that is a similar way to how Ben ended up dying. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing to my friends and family if I don't quit. And so I quit the next day.
Wow.
And haven't gone back. I didn't do groups or anything. That was my time it was my time to quit.
That's a lot of willpower and self-recognition.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way I can think of it as it's a very mature thought process. To be able to help yourself.
So I stayed in the corporate world for like a year and a half after that and continued to freelance, but I got headhunted for a marketing director position in the cannabis industry. And I made it pretty clear that work-life balance at that point in my life and my career was a non-negotiable for me. Like I no longer believe in a traditional 9 to 5. Like if my contractors or employees work better at 2 a.m, please work in the morning, like work at 2 a.m, just get your work done. And it did not carry through that way. And so I was coming home from a bachelorette party and they had made my trip terrible. The job I was at, just like I was on vacation and there was no respect for that. And so I quit on the airplane effective immediately. I messaged a restaurant I had worked at and just said, hey, I think I'm going to quit. If I have to come back, can I? And they were like, yeah, no questions asked. And I have been on my own since.
You advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
Is that important for women to do? To just advocate for themselves?
Yeah.
Why?
I think most of us are told to be quiet. Like, I think that is a huge societal, when you look at societal roles, I think most of us are told to be quiet. I think it's funny. There's so much looking at women with ADHD right now. So I'm an adult diagnosed ADHDer.
Okay.
Not when I was a kid. And I was the kid like in school who talked too much and all of that. And you have to be quiet and you have to like not do that. And now when they look at the symptoms of young girls with ADHD, that's a huge part of it that presents differently than young boys. But I think it's so ingrained in us for a long time that we're too emotional or we're too loud or we're too much. When in reality, we're not. We should just have a voice, and that should be normalized for women to be able to advocate for themselves too. It's interesting. So I do tarot like once a week. I'm learning to pull, but I have a tarot reader I go to about once a week or every 2 weeks. And I'm kind of reconnecting with an ex right now. And I talked to her yesterday and said, I don't know, like I am very much an advocate for myself in all aspects of my life outside of relationships because I was never allowed to be. And I was like, I need to learn how to do this. Can we focus my reading this week on
how
that?
to advocate for yourself
in a
specific
relationship. Yeah, because
relationship.
I don't think it's skill sets that we as women are taught. I think in our jobs, we are kind of taught to be smaller. I think in our relationships, we are taught to be smaller. And yeah, I just think.
How do you think in the future, like, how do you think we could change that pattern?
I think it is just, what do I want to say to this? I think my mom talks about this all the time. You have a girl and a boy, don't you?
I do.
She talks about how, like, realistically, women and men just are wired differently. And you realize it even from a young age.
I do.
And I think when you look at even us at a young age, we are raised as if we are the same. And we don't communicate the same. We don't speak the same. So teaching your daughters from a young age how to present in maybe a non-emotional way, a non-reactive way, because I think we're all a little bit more fiery. We're all a little bit more reactive.
At least those of us who like to start the fire and, you know, get something going. Yeah.
But also just giving everyone the space. Like, I think even in, like, whether that's elementary school or middle school or high school, like giving kids the space to actually say, hey, how are you doing right now? Versus putting everyone into this little cluster of we operate the same way.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask you this. When you shifted from your 9-to-5 corporate world jobs to, hey, I'm going to be my own boss and start these adventures as an entrepreneur, do you think that that was giving yourself space, or do you think that was giving yourself time, or you just were like, I work better at different hours than 9-to-5?
I have just realized for a long time that I don't think corporate is, like, what's meant for me. In all honesty, having ADHD, I do function in a bunch of different ways. And some days what works for me might not be what works for me the next. Some days I have to take my Adderall. Some days I don't. I do really enjoy running multiple businesses because some days it is really hard for me to sit down and focus on a website. But editing I can do on that day, and I can shift my schedule easily. Or I can work late at night. Like, as someone with ADHD, I don't really sit still. Like, I can't sit and just watch a TV show. It drives me up a wall.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what it means to relax.
I'm kind of in the same boat, and now you're making me question some things that are happening in my life.
I do really like to sit and watch a TV show while I edit, so I can look up and down. And so it gives me the ability to kind of always do that. But that's hard when you're in corporate because you have a salary, and you don't want to give too much to the company that you're with. And I am an over-pourer. I'm a highly empathetic person who kind of pours into everything. Okay. And I will do that with corporate jobs. And I think for a period of time, there was a lot of resentment that I held towards some corporate realm because I did give so much. And at the end of the day, like, it's just your job. Like, you are an employee to most companies.
So you're saying the resentment you held was that you poured too much and didn't receive enough back?
How do I want to answer that? I don't think it's even that, but I think as, like, an independent freelancer, everything I pour into my clients is mine. Like, if a client is hiring me, it's because we get along well. They like my work. And I get to work with them directly in a way that works best for us versus pouring a lot into a company that maybe doesn't see it that way or doesn't value the work in the same way, because at the end of the day, you're just an employee. If that makes sense. I don't know what I'm trying to word there.
I get it. So you said the word value, and that was also coming to my mind when you were talking about, you know, a shift in your career path, right? Do you find that you value your time more as an entrepreneur, or you do? Why?
I think, and a lot of that comes back to Ben. I value my time a lot more now because I am able to choose where I put my time. And I'm able to pour that time into things that are important to me versus feeling guilt if I feel like I'm not doing enough at a job or if I'm not living up to someone else's expectations of me. But at the end of the day, like, my family and my loved ones they're a higher value to me than my work. And I am able to shift that now. Like I said, if my nephew has a day off, like, he goes to my mom one Wednesday a month. Okay. That I try to make sure that Wednesday is blocked off because I can, and he is a high value, and I want to make sure at this point in his life, I am getting that time. Or I try to have lunch with my grandma once a month. Like, we get a Costco lasagna. And I'm able to do that, and I'm able to readjust my schedule where it needs to be. And And I think in a lot of ways that has also empowered me to be more of the person I want, both in my career and as an individual, because I'm able to merge them in a way that actually works best for me.
I love this.
Yeah.
I think that your amount of empathy towards yourself is really important. And as women, we don't always see that. So I am going to put you on hold and our guests on hold, and we will be right back with That's What She Said with Arielle Roth.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
And we're back. All right. And we are back to That's What She Said. And this tea is piping hot. Women empowerment is flowing through Arielle's veins, I swear. Arielle, you are very aware.
Yeah.
You're aware of yourself, your surroundings, what you want. And I mean, even it feels like to me, your direction, the direction you want to go in. And that's not always common for people in general, but as women, we tend to, you know, have a lot of self-doubt, right? And just unsure of like, am I doing the right thing? Does this fill my cup? Does this fill their cup? Am I, you know, all these questions pop in our head because, you know, women are really dynamic, right? So we tend to have self-doubt. And I do not get an ounce of that vibe from you right now.
No.
Okay, so here we go. All right. So maybe I'm a card reader.
Not
I'm
when
feeling this.
Not when it comes to like who I am as an individual and like work and stuff. No, I'm pretty like.
Where does this confidence come from?
Honestly, like I will say a lot about growing up in a rough household and stuff, but my mom tells me all the time, she's like, I don't know that I was a great parent. And I'm like, no, you were. Truthfully, when I look at other individuals in the same time period, I don't know that they were raised quite the same way. So my parents, well, her ex-husband and her got together when me and my brother were both like 3.5, 4. We're only 3 months apart. And then we have a younger sibling who is almost 11 years younger than us. But my mom really maybe this is why I talk about this, like giving your kids in school space to talk about how they are feeling or like giving them all of that. My mom really did raise each of us to be our own individuals. Like she really did like discipline and how she raised and how she communicated and advocated for each of us really by knowing her children and what was best for us. And she really encouraged us to take whatever chance and do whatever we needed to do. I also was the smart kid. Of them, I was the smart sibling.
Yeah.
And so I was pushed quite a bit to do all that. I went to school for engineering before I ever went into marketing.
No way.
Yeah. And I actually say all the time, I think it applies to marketing for me because marketing is so data and analytical based, same as web design. Like it's a fine-tuned machine. So I just apply that engineering background in a creative way.
Are you the oldest?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
By like 3 months, but yes, I am the oldest.
I'm getting the oldest vibe. And you know, when you're the oldest and you're a girl, you're basically growing up as a boss babe, right? You're just, it's ingrained.
I don't know. I like for most of my adulthood, I've kind of just always been that way when it comes to like career and stuff. Like I'm very, very aware of who I am. I'm who I want. Like I just I'll make a decision based on intuition on what feels right or what doesn't. It's never steered me wrong, to be honest. Like
going with your gut.
Yeah.
Would you pass that piece of advice along to women? Just go with your gut?
Yeah, to anyone, but women specifically. I think sometimes men are better at trusting it than women are.
Why do you think that is?
I think that comes back to a lot of it. Like we're told that we're too much or we're told to be smaller or to kind of be in the background. And so I think we're taught to let other people lead a lot of the times. And I think that's shifting. I think when we look at generation by generation, we see a shift with every single one. Like I think if we look at our grandparents versus our parents, how our grandma operated in a marriage was probably drastically different than how our mom did, just by little shifts. And I think then our generation shifts things slightly as that starts to change. And so I think over time, our generation is becoming a little bit more that way. But older generations are still more in the, hey, you stay in your job for forever. You operate in your marriage for forever. You have dinner cooked on the table. So I think that's slowly shifting. And I think having conversations like this also starts to shift it, you know, as a younger girl might listen to it and it's like, okay, this is how I start to move forward.
Yeah.
Or an older woman who is like, this is what I needed to hear. Like,
They
you
feel
know,
stuck.
yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times I do get feedback from women just saying, you know, I could sort of kind of relate that girl in the other seat, that woman really didn't look like me.
Yeah.
She doesn't have, you know, XYZ in her career that parallels mine, but these were words of encouragement. And I think that's
too,
important.
yeah. And it's something I've really looked at quite a bit in therapy through going through sobriety. But like, really, if you take that chance and you trust your gut, what is the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, at the end of the day, like, if you take a different job, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Like, or if you quit your job to do your passion, yeah, maybe it doesn't work, but you can find another job, or you can, you know, like, maybe it does work, but it's not going to, like, really, in the grand scheme of your life, what is taking a chance or trusting your gut really going to, like,
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I don't know. That's kind of what
I
I
hear
operate.
you.
I operate on a pretty big, like, why not mindset. Like, even the quitting my job, like, I quit effective immediate from an airplane, but like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
and I do logistically think through some things. I'm not going to say like, I don't.
Arielle's just frantically
Like, I did-
free spirit wandering around the
I
Great
did,
Lakes
like,
area.
text my restaurant beforehand and was like, hey, can I come back before I just do that? Like, I do make sure I have backup plans in place, and I think that everyone should do that. But at the end of the day, like, why not take a chance on something during your life, or why not trust your gut intuition? I think as women, especially, our gut intuition tends to be pretty spot on.
You know what? Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. Yes, period. So do you think it was gut intuition that you shifted your academics when you said, I was studying engineering, and you're like, pivot?
That one I did for a long time. So I started college, like, very, very briefly for graphic design. And then I switched to engineering. It's what I did a lot of it in high school. I was like in shop classes. I competed in CAD classes and stuff. It was really pushed a lot because I'm so mathematically inclined and like I'm smart. I'm like to like,
that's all. You don't need to. You're smart. You are.
And like, obviously when you're 18, 19 years old, there's a ton of money in engineering. Like, and so I co-opt and everything in it, and I enjoyed it. But between Saginaw Valley has a really great math and science program. I'm sorry if there's anyone from Saginaw Valley listening to this. Their engineering program is not good. And a lot of people will tell you that. Like, that's not just me saying that. But their business program and everything is incredible. So between co-oping, I realized maybe I'm a little bit too social and outgoing for engineering. I really don't like sitting at a desk all day long. It's not a super social career. And I just kind of went with marketing and ended up like,
I mean, that's a sophisticated decision to make, though.
Yeah.
Like, because you had to kind of internalize, like, this is what I'm good at talent-wise, but what is it that my mindset, you know, needs right now? And not many people can do that. Not many people can say, you know, this is my talent, but this is where my body needs to be, and this is how I need to react. So did that shift parallel with you getting diagnosed as an adult for ADD?
No, that was pretty, like, within the last couple of years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, because so I have BPD, it's borderline personality disorder. So it is a personality disorder that comes from growing up in abuse that has also been diagnosed in the past couple of years. But again, I think a lot of that goes back to being sober. Like, I was numbing my feelings for so long. I knew I was depressed. I've always dealt with chronic depression. I got diagnosed with that in high school. I've always been a little bit anxious, high strung. The ADHD actually makes that make a lot more sense. But getting sober and going through therapy and diagnosis were so different because I actually understand what I'm feeling because of therapy. So no, like, the ADHD and everything has been a later in life, and it's been wonderful. Like, it's made everything make so much sense.
The clarity. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. My mind is racing.
I know you brought me on for boudoir.
I know. It happens. That's the thing. That really is the wonderful thing about That's What She Said, because, you know, women, we just start having this good flow of conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And so when I came up with, you know, like, oh, let's spill the tea, I love that idea because tea, when you spill anything, it can go in any direction.
Yeah.
And so that's really what it is. Having this platform to have a conversation that's like, 1, healthy, 2, empowering, 3, we don't know what we're gonna talk about, right?
Yeah.
Nothing here is scripted, guys. So but you're self-aware, but where does this reflection component come in? Is there a time that you have in the past or daily, just like, this was my day, I'm reflecting on this? Has that ever?
I do journal.
You do?
Every day. Yeah. And so have you done tarot or anything?
No.
Okay. So I pull oracle cards for myself every morning. So I pull oracle for myself every morning and kind of just get a general feel for what I need. And I know everyone listening to this is going to either believe in it or they won't. And that's great. It has changed my life to some degree. I also am a highly intuitive person. Again, you'll believe it or you don't. The first time I went to this new tarot girl, she was like, "Girl, you're a walking tower moment for people in your lives." And I was like, "I know."
Wait, what does that mean?
Like people's life shift when I come
Okay.
into their lives, and I'm like, I know. I ask any person I've dated. No, really. Like they
Yeah.
all have major shifts that happen in their lives.
That's awesome.
But I am just an incredibly intuitive person. So I pull cards every morning. It's just kind of a general, what do I need to know for today or like moving forward in the next couple? And I journal those. And then, I reflect on my day every day. It started actually when Ben died. I started journaling. We used to talk on the phone every morning on my drive to work. And so all of a sudden you go from having that every morning to like, you can't talk to this person anymore. So I started journaling to Ben. Like if I go back in my really early journal entries, they all are addressed like, "Hey Ben," like, "Hey B," like all of that. And then it's just carried over that I continue to just journal, kind of whatever.
Do you think that morning tarot card pulling and journaling, in my mind, I'm thinking of tarot cards. I don't know much about it, but the way that you're explaining it to me, it kind of sounds like a manifestation. Like, this is how my day's going to go.
Yeah, they are. And so I do believe in manifestation and writing it down quite a bit. So they're pretty different. I don't pull tarot. I want to get trained on it. But oracle is more like general. It's like general theme, kind of. It's a little bit more loose.
So tarot and oracle are 2 different realms. So you pull oracle.
Yes. And I do it more so just like in a realm of like, hey, what do I need to know?
What was today's?
Now? I don't remember, to be honest with you. And like I'd have to look at my notes for what they are. I know I've been pulling the Seeker quite a bit lately, but off the top of my head, I can't talk about like what it all breaks down to. And it is interesting when you continuously pull the same ones and things. But yeah, in terms of self-awareness, I think journaling is really big. And I think it's hard for people initially. Like people don't really know where to start. And sometimes like when I first started, it was also looking at journal prompts. Now I just write kind of whatever comes to me. And I think people who are friends with me on Facebook, that is funny. I actually wondered like how, because you had just added me and I was like, I don't know if I know her, but we have a lot of mutual connections.
I know, right?
But I very openly share a lot of my life on Facebook, obviously as well. And it's probably an extension of journaling for me, but just write whatever, like just write your feelings. And it does help a lot of time to just get them out. If I'm really struggling with something, sometimes I will write all my thoughts down and then I will come back to it in like 5 to 7 days and be like, okay, like what still aligns, what doesn't, what has shifted now with sitting with this. And it helps kind of look forward.
Did journaling help you on the road to sobriety?
I didn't journal before getting sober. Girl, I was a hot mess. People wouldn't know that. Like when I really openly share about my sobriety journey, and part of the reason I do it is because I think everyone thinks it's like the Frank Gallaghers of the world who are the alcoholics or the addicts. When in reality, it is more of like the me's. I was already very successful in my career at that point. I was working full-time jobs. I was a marketing director, like when I quit and got,
Yeah.
And I was freelancing since 2016 and I didn't get sober until 2021. So if you look at all of that, I was sitting on boards through all of that. I was not the person who would have projected outwardly as that. And so it's why I'm so open, because I think it shifts stigmas behind it. Same as openly sharing about being a woman who chose to get my tubes tied or being so open about mental health. Like it does start to shift perspectives.
Can we unpack that? You are open about having your tubes tied.
Yeah.
Why did you make that decision?
I've never wanted kids, to be honest. But very quickly back to that, and then I'll come back to that.
Okay.
So I never journaled. I was a hot mess. It was something my therapist recommended. It's been great. So back to
So we recommend journaling.
Yeah, I think everyone, whether that's for goal setting or just to get feelings out or whatever. I have never wanted kids, like, ever. And my mom will talk about, like, does your daughter like baby dolls and stuff?
Yeah, kind of sort of. She's grown out of it. Yeah.
So I was never a baby doll kid. She's like, you
Okay.
loved Barbie. She's like, but your Barbies never had kids. She was like, but your Barbies all had careers.
They're all single. Every Barbie in this playhouse is single.
And I didn't use, she was like, she has told me, she was like, I knew your brother Daniel would be like the white picket fence, like the married kids family. And she's like, I think I knew since you were a kid that you would never be my one to give me grandkids. Yeah. So I really never wanted them. I don't have a huge, like, the idea of being pregnancy is super gross to me. I'm sorry to anyone who finds it beautiful.
No, we all think it too.
I've never wanted them. It's just not a huge drive. And I say that, but I'm also the person who, like, I know my mom has my nephew one Wednesday a month, and I'm like, I'm taking that freaking day off. Like, I love kids. I'm going to preface that. I just don't want my own. And I have always been this person who's married to my career. And it's one of my favorite things about myself. I like that I am a woman who owns multiple companies. And I like that I'm a 33-year-old woman who is successful doing it with global clients in my agency. I think I'm breaking a lot of molds just in that. And I work with a lot of, like, more industrial-based companies for my agency because of my engineering background. Like, it's cool to have that level of respect because of that. But if I logistically look at kids, I think I would be an incredible mother. I think I would love my kids knowing how much I pour into everyone in my life. I think because I pour so much into everyone, I would lose the very core parts that are my favorite parts of myself if I became a parent. Because I don't think me running businesses the way I do, and that being such a huge part of the fact that I do like to sit on the couch and work, or I do like the flexibility in my life. I don't think that aligns with a child lifestyle, truthfully. And as someone in recovery and with mental health issues, I don't think that that is necessarily something people think about enough when they're having kids and the genetic aspect of those.
Okay.
And I don't think that I can consciously pass on addiction or mental health.
So it was a two-part decision.
Another human, truthfully. Yeah. I think, like, if I ever did it and my child suffered from the same things, I would feel a large sense of guilt, knowing that there is a genetic component to it. And could I have not put them through that by not having them?
Yeah.
So went in for hysterectomy consult. My doctor was like, I'm not just going to do hysterectomy, but we'll check you for endo, we'll tie your tubes at the same time. And a large part also was when some of the southern states, and I know we don't want to talk politics, but when they started changing the laws behind abortion and what could happen with them, I just was like, I don't want this to be something that I have to worry about. Truthfully, I would rather someday change my mind, which at 33 I know won't happen, but adopt, which I would prefer to do anyways as someone who has no desire to be physically pregnant, than potentially have to worry about not being able to make that decision for myself.
So I said two-part decision. You were talking about the genetic aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then also you pour a lot into your existing, adventures, right?
Yeah.
You're pouring pretty heavy. If you were a bartender, holy smokes, this would be a heavy pour.
I did bartend for a long time.
Yay, you get my reference. So what is it that you do for yourself to give you the ability to just go all in when you're ready to?
Boudoir is a huge part of pouring into myself, truthfully, because I am helping a lot of people, a lot of women, in the same way that I wish that I had, like, been given a safe space like that. So that's pretty cool to be able to do. I go to the gym pretty much every day, truthfully, every morning, usually. So I won't take a meeting before 11 a.m. Nice. I like slow mornings. I like to pull my cards. I like to have my cup of decaf coffee. I like to hang out with my cats. And I go to the gym every morning. I do yoga 1 to 2 days a week. I do spin a lot. Like, I'm a pretty, like, gym focused person. And that is my time, truthfully.
What does that time do for your mindset in the rest of your day?
It is just my time that I turn it off. Like, I don't have any notifications that come through when I'm at the gym. It is my like hour or 2 hours, depending on how many classes I do, that are mine. And it does just give me some clarity and focus, because I do think it's the same as journaling. It gets thoughts out in a different way.
So you're kind of shutting down all the noise.
Yeah, for a period of time, that is just my time.
Is that important for women to do?
Yeah, I think we have more noise in our lives than men. I can't imagine like being a woman who has a job and also has children.
Yeah.
Like,
Tell me about it, girl.
yeah, but so you guys have even more noise. And I think naturally when you look at roles, a lot more of that comes on to women. I just think in general, I think kids naturally go to their moms more than their dads. I think we are more emotionally nurturing, so we kind of take that on. So yeah, I do think women need it. I think everyone needs it, but women, yes, I do think that we deserve our time to focus just on what makes us happy.
The community is so lucky to have you.
Thanks.
I really, what you're saying is just, it's all the things that you're self-aware, but you're also open to not being a gatekeeper to that information.
Yeah.
And with sobriety, with your dynamic childhood and entrepreneurship, like and making a call early on in your life, saying like I'm living my life for this, whatever that may be. So what is a piece of information or a story or something that you would pass along to someone who is possibly going through some sobriety journey?
This is actually my piece of advice always, and I think it can apply to literally anything. Like, even when I said the one of just trust your gut intuition and just do it, when you're doing any of those things, dude, like, don't look at it as a permanent decision. Like, every single time I tried to get sober in the beginning, it was like, I'm gonna be sober for my whole life. And the last time around I did it, I shifted to like, okay, let's just get through these 24 hours. And in the beginning, it was just an hour. And then like, all right, 24 hours. And then once 24 hours is easy, all right, let's get through 3 days. But like in the very beginning of whatever you're doing, whether that is learning how to advocate for yourself or like making a career change or learning how to do any of these things or focusing on your mental health or getting sober, don't look at it 10 years from now. Just look at it right now. Like, what do you need to do immediately to start doing this? What can you do to start advocating for yourself right now? And maybe that is just speaking up on a little topic versus one that is like super nerve-wracking, or maybe it is like just applying for your LLC.
One step at a time.
Yes.
To move forward at one step of a time.
But look at things in a 24-hour period. And then as they grow, then look at your 1-year plan, your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan.
This is a great piece of advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming on. That's What She Said. Thank you for that piece of advice. And that is Arielle Roth. And that is what she said.